Chapter 3868. Hearing the commotion outside, Xianyuan Mose gestured for Ling Hua, who was standing next to him, to carry the two children into his arms. Then, he brought the two children to the courtyard outside in a wheelchair. Everyone has traveled thousands of miles to come and congratulate me. This sovereign thanks you all. A deep voice that contained a powerful aura and spirit energy spread out, clearly transmitting into the clouds. When it landed in the ears of the sovereigns in outer space, it shook the hearts of everyone in Spirit Immortal City. In the next moment, the golden light that gathered the blessings of the sovereigns sprinkled down from the clouds with a gentle aura, accurately landing on the two children in Xianyuan Mose's arms in the small building at the center of the lake. The blessings from the immortal sovereigns would naturally extend their good fortune. In the future, these blessings would bring them endless benefit. Therefore, Xianyuan Mose naturally would not reject their blessings and spirit cleansing. The so-called blessing and spirit cleansing referred to the blessing of awakening the hidden spirit energy in the children. With the sovereigns cleansing the spirits of the two children, not to mention their innate talent, their future cultivation would be 1,000 miles. Everyone in the city stared blankly at this scene, their hearts filled with shock. Blessing and spirit cleansing. The blessing and spirit cleansing from the sovereigns of heaven and earth was something that had never been heard of in millions of years. Now they were actually witnessing such a grand occasion. The two newborn children were blessed with such good fortune. They were truly dragons among dragons and phoenixes. Even among millions of people, there was no one like them. It was truly enviable. When the people of the high firmament celestial sect saw the scene in the sky and heard the words, they were all shocked speechless. Sovereigns! Sovereigns of heaven and earth! Sovereigns of heaven and earth had never appeared in their world. They did not expect that sovereigns would appear in their world, and they did not know about it. Duan Yunhe looked at the scene in the sky and sighed in his heart. He knew that these people had extraordinary origins, but he did not expect them to be unreachable figures like the sovereigns of heaven and earth. In the courtyard of the small building at the center of the lake, Du Fan and the others looked at the golden light that fell on the two children with smiles and joy in their eyes. How wonderful! The two young masters were blessed and cleansed by the various monarchs. That was truly a blessing. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two children in his arms. The two children, who were originally sleeping, moved their little heads comfortably, closed their eyes, and fell asleep. They even grinned from ear to ear. Seeing the two children like this, his heart softened. The way he looked at the two children was so gentle that he didn't look like a ruthless monarch. Instead, he looked like an ordinary father who loved and spoiled his children. When the golden light dissipated, he looked up at the seven-colored light and said in a low voice, "On behalf of my two children, I thank you all. Azure Dragon Sovereign, you're exaggerating." In the clouds, several voices could be heard. They laughed and said, "If that's the case, we will take our leave." As soon as they finished speaking, the seven-colored light in the night sky gradually dissipated. The churning clouds also gradually parted, and the night sky returned to its usual appearance. Only the stars twinkled in the pitch-black night. Xianyuan Mose looked at the two children in his arms and said to Qin Xin and Bai Qingqing, "Carry the children inside. Don't catch a cold." "Yes." The two answered and walked forward to take the children and send them back to their rooms. Chapter 3869. "Yes." Fan Lin responded and turned to leave. Next, the mistress was going to eat the food that could be eaten during the confinement period. Fortunately, they had already ordered someone to brew wine. And they would first have someone use the wine to stew a spirit chicken to nourish the mistress's body. That night, because Fengjiu gave birth to a pair of twins, everyone in the Fu was excited and happy. Even though it was late at night, no one felt sleepy. The two children were sent back to their rooms to rest, and the mistress was also resting. They did not dare to disturb her, so they all went to the front courtyard to drink and celebrate. In the main courtyard, Xianyuan Mose sat by the bed and accompanied Fengjiu. He did not go to rest, but sat in the wheelchair and watched her sleep on the bed. She was exhausted. Her face was pale and she looked exhausted. Fortunately, both mother and child were safe. The next morning, Fengjiu was awakened by the sound of a baby crying. When she woke up, she saw Xianyuan Mose sitting by the bed and watching over her. The baby was crying in the small room outside. "You're awake? Are you hungry? I'll have someone prepare some food for you," Xianyuan Mose said. Just as he was about to call someone in, he heard her words. "Why aren't you sleeping? What's wrong with the baby? Why are you crying?" Fengjiu asked. She wanted to get up, but this movement tugged at the wound on her lower body. She could not help but hiss and frown slightly. "Don't move. Just lie down." Xianyuan Mose quickly pressed her down and told her to lie down and not move. He said, "The baby is fine. Perhaps he's crying because he's hungry. Qin Xian and the others are taking care of him." Hearing this, Fengjiu's heart relaxed. She said, "Let Qin Xian and the others bring the baby over. I'll feed him." "But your body right now," Xianyuan Mose was a little worried. Before the child was born, Fengjiu insisted on feeding the child herself after giving birth, so they didn't hire a wet nurse. They just raised 2 dairy sheep in the back of the mountain. After the child was born, he cried a few times and then fell asleep obediently. He didn't wake up and cry until just now. However, he was a little worried about her health. She was so weak, could she feed 2 children? Would her body not be able to take it? Fengjiu smiled. "My body is recovering. I'm not as weak as you think. Let them bring the child over." Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose had no choice but to let Qin Xian and Bai Qingqing carry the child over. "Master, Yama Lord." The 2 of them came forward with the child in their arms and bowed to them. "Wah! Wah!" The baby's cries were loud and clear. "Quickly bring him over and let me see," Fengjiu said. She supported herself on the bed with both hands and tried to sit up. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose quickly helped her to sit up and said, "Be careful." He considerately took a pillow and stuffed it behind her waist to make her more comfortable. Fengjiu took the 2 children and held them in her arms. Looking at the 2 crying children, she could not help but coax them with heartache. "Be good, don't cry. Mother is here." Qin Xian and Bai Qingqing left, leaving Xianyuan Mose alone in the room. Ling Shuang was guarding outside the door. When he saw the 2 of them come out, he glanced at them. "Master is awake. I'll go to the kitchen and bring some food over," Qin Xian said with a smile and walked out. "I'll go and help," Bai Qingqing said and followed. Chapter 3870. Fengjiu was startled. She hurriedly said to Xianyuan Mose, "You carry one." Xianyuan Mose was a little flustered as he carried a crying child. He saw Fengjiu undo her lapel and pull her clothes down slightly, revealing a patch of snow-white skin, as well as that plump. He was stunned. His burning gaze stared at her half-exposed snow-white shoulders, as well as those plump breasts that made it hard for him to look away. But before he could look enough, he saw her carrying the child to her half-exposed chest. The little fellow was originally crying with his eyes closed, but when his little mouth sucked in the sweet mother's milk, his crying suddenly stopped. He sucked like a little puppy, even making sobbing sounds. Seeing this, he had the urge to go forward and pick up the little bastard and throw him away. Fengjiu saw that the little fellow had stopped crying, then smiled. She looked up and saw Xianyuan Mose staring at the child in her arms with a dark expression. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Why are you staring like this?" Xianyuan Mose glanced at his son in Fengjiu's arms and said, "Jiu, why don't we find a wet nurse for the 2 children?" As soon as he said this, Fengjiu knew what he meant. Her beautiful eyes turned and she glared at him. She said unhappily, "You're the child's father. The child has just been born, and you already know how to be jealous of the child?" Xianyuan Mose's face was slightly uncomfortable when she said this. His ears were slightly red. He said, "I'm worried that you won't be able to feed the 2 of them." How can I not know you? Fengjiu glanced at him in disbelief. Seeing that the child in her arms had been eating for a while, she handed him to Xianyuan Mose. At the same time, she took her daughter and switched sides to feed her. Xianyuan Mose took the child and saw the little fellow smacking his lips. There was a trace of milk at the corner of his mouth. A pair of black eyes blinked and stared at him. Kid, I'm your father. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he stared at his son in his arms. But in the next moment, his face darkened. He held the child with both hands and lifted him up. He glanced at the large wet patch on his robe. Poochie! Ha 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 ha! When Fengjiu saw this scene, she couldn't help but laugh. When she laughed, the little guy who had eaten his fill also giggled. Seeing the mother and son laughing so happily, Xianyuan Mose's originally dark expression also eased. He sighed helplessly and said, "This brat really needs to be taught a lesson." Fengjiu laughed for a while and calmed down, but the corners of his mouth were still upturned. He said, "Quickly let Qin Xian and the others come in to take care of the children. You go take a bath first, then go to sleep. I don't need to stand guard here anymore." She was not clean yet, so she naturally couldn't let him sleep in the same bed with her. Moreover, he didn't rest while standing guard here. Seeing that he was a little tired, she naturally hoped that he could go to sleep first. "I'm not tired. I'll take a bath first and then come back." As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he placed the child by the side of the bed, then pushed Luanlin out. When they were outside, he said to Ling Shuang, who was outside the door, "Go in and take care of him." "Yes." Ling Shuang responded and then went inside. At this time, in front of the door of the small house in the middle of the lake, many family heads came in person with congratulatory gifts. After one of them knocked on the door of the small house in the middle of the lake, he waited nervously. Chapter 38-71. Seeing Ling Hua, the crowd smiled and said, "We know that your esteemed mistress has just given birth to Lin, so we specially came here to congratulate you. We hope you'll accept it." Hearing this, Ling Hua smiled gently and said, "Thank you for your kindness. However, my mistress has instructed that we won't accept any gift. I will convey your intentions to my mistress. These are just some things to nourish the body. They're not expensive gifts. Since we've brought them here, we don't intend to take them back. We hope you'll accept them," one of the middle-aged men said. He didn't hand the things over to Ling Hua. Instead, he placed them in front of the door, cupped his hands in salute, and turned to leave. It was as if he was afraid that if he was too slow, Ling Hua would have to take the things back. When the others saw this, they also put down the things and hurriedly left. Ling Hua was slightly surprised. Looking at the mountain-like pile of gifts, he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. Forget it. Since they've already brought the things here, he'll just take them in. Thus, after the crowd left, he flicked his sleeve and put all the things into his space. Then, he closed the door and walked inside. "Ling Hua, who's outside?" Luo Yu asked, tossing a red fruit in his hand. When he arrived in front of Ling Hua, he handed the fruit to him. "I'm not eating. You can have it," Ling Hua said with a warm smile. "Some of the family heads in the city sent gifts to congratulate you on giving birth to a little master. There are so many of them. I'm just about to open them and see what's inside." "I see. Then I'll go with you. Let's see what they've brought." Luo Yu took a bite of the fruit and motioned for him to go to the front yard. The two of them went to the front hall and opened the gifts to check. Seeing that most of them were nourishing herbs for nourishing the body, they tidied up the things and went to the backyard. What a fragrant wine! Luo Yu smelled the wine as soon as he entered the yard. He took a few deep breaths and hurriedly asked, "There's also the fragrance of spirit chicken in the wine. What's so delicious about it?" "It's wine chicken soup for the master." Qin Xian came out with the things and smiled. "Why are you here? Wine chicken soup? Is there anything else? Give me half a bowl to try." Luo Yu grinned and said greedily, "Yes, you can eat in the kitchen if you want." Qin Xian chuckled. This wine chicken soup is naturally very delicious. It's specially made for women in confinement. I also made Crucian carp soup. Do you want to have a bowl too? Crucian carp soup? Is that also good for the body? Luo Yu asked curiously. Qin Xian pursed her lips into a smile and said, "There's a saying in medical books. Women don't have enough breast milk. Drinking Crucian carp soup can help." Cough cough. Luo Yu choked on his saliva and his face turned red. He quickly waved his hand. No, I don't need it. I don't want to drink the chicken soup." When Ling Hua heard their conversation, the smile on his face deepened. He looked at Qin Xian and said, "Just now, the people in the city sent some nourishing things. I was just about to give them to you and pick some for Master to eat." "What are they?" "Now Master is eating nutritious and nourishing things. Some of the herbs can't be used," Qin Xian said and followed them to the stone table in the yard with the plate in her hand. Chapter 38-72. He was here just now, but Master asked him to rest in the back room. Qin Xian said. Hearing this, Luo Yu asked again, "Where are the two little masters?" "They should be asleep in Master's room." Seeing this, Luo Yu asked again, "Will I disturb Master's rest if I go in now?" Qin Xian smiled. "If you want to see Master, it's better to wait a few days. Master needs to rest more now and recuperate well." "Okay then," Luo Yu said and did not go forward. Instead, he turned back and sat down at the table. Qin Xian put away the things and said, "Then I'll go to the kitchen first. Are my sister and the others waiting on Master in his room?" Leng Hua asked. "Yes, they are all helping to take care of the little masters." Qin Xian smiled and walked out. Since there was nothing to do, Luo Yu thought of something. He looked at Leng Hua and grinned. "Leng Hua, since there is nothing to do recently, why don't we arrange a celebration tonight? After all, it's such a joyous occasion for Master to give birth to a little master. We can't just drink a few glasses of wine like we did last night, right?" Hearing this, Leng Hua nodded. "Yes, that's a good idea. I'll tell Master or Yama Lord about it later. We don't have many friends here, so we can invite them to join in the fun." "You mean Duan Yunhe and Genie Feng?" Luo Yu asked. "Yes, other than them, we don't have any friends, right?" Hearing this, Luo Yu touched his chin and thought for a while. "Okay, then I'll go and prepare first. Since we want to invite them, we have to do it in advance. I'll go and arrange it now. You can tell Master and Yama Lord about it later. They should agree." "Okay," Leng Hua responded. After watching him leave, he walked towards the main house and knocked on the door. "Master." Fengjiu, who was watching the two sleeping children in the room, heard Leng Hua's voice outside. He gestured to the Leng Shuang beside the bed. "Let him in." "Yes." Leng Shuang replied softly, so as not to disturb the sleeping young master. After Leng Shuang went out, Bai Qingqing went forward to put down the bed curtains. After all, her mistress was only wearing an inner robe and her black hair was loose. She could not let them see her mistress in this state. Leng Shuang came to the outer room. After opening the door, she looked at her brother and said softly, "The little master is sleeping. Keep your voice down. Don't startle them." "Okay." Leng Hua responded and followed her in. After entering, Leng Hua did not raise his head. Instead, he bowed slightly and said, "Master, the various families in the city sent some nourishing gifts to congratulate Master on giving birth to Lin. I didn't want to accept their gifts, but they left after putting them down. So I put the gifts away and gave them to Qin Xian to take care of. I asked her to pick something for Master to eat to nourish Master's body." Hearing this, Fengjiu replied, "All right, I'll take it then. It's nothing." Leng Hua said, "There's one more thing." "What is it?" Fengjiu asked lazily. "We want to hold a banquet tonight to celebrate the birth of the little master. We want to invite Duan Yunhe and Genie Feng. You can arrange these things. There's no need to ask. Go. Let's celebrate and make it lively," Fengjiu said with a smile. He would let them arrange it themselves. Chapter 38-73. Luo Yu and the rest arranged everything, and the residence was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Originally, Luo Yu and the rest had chosen to celebrate today, but when they talked to the others, they said that it would be better to celebrate together on the third day of the Lunar New Year. However, after thinking about it, they felt that tomorrow was the third day of the Lunar New Year, and they could celebrate together. As such, there was this lively banquet today. Leader, someone sent an invitation over. The mercenary handed an exquisite invitation to Jin Feng, and looked at it curiously. Leader, who did they send the invitation to? Jin Feng took a look at the exquisite invitation, and was slightly surprised. He reached out to erase the seal, and took out the invitation. After taking a look, he couldn't help but be startled. It's an invitation from the small house in the middle of the lake. An invitation from the small villa in the middle of the lake? The mercenary couldn't help but move forward. Leader, why did they send you an invitation? Jin Feng closed the invitation and glanced at him. Go do what you need to do. As he spoke, he strode out. He didn't expect them to send him an invitation to celebrate. However, since the other party sent him an invitation, he had to prepare something as a congratulatory gift. But what should he give? On the other side, Duan Yunhe also received the invitation. When he saw the invitation, he was also surprised. He didn't expect them to invite him to celebrate. Therefore, he began to prepare. After choosing a gift, he left the sect and went to the small building in the middle of the lake. In the evening, Xianyuan Mose came to the master bedroom and saw Fengjiu playing with the two children. The two children were lying next to her and giggling. Hearing the mother and children's laughter, his gaze softened. Mose? You're here? Come and see, these two children are so beautiful when they laugh. Fengjiu called out to him as she played with the children. Xianyuan Mose went forward and saw that the cloth wrapped around the two children had been changed to two different colors, one white and one pink. Clearly, it was to distinguish them. However, even if it wasn't distinguished, the children could still distinguish them. This was because there was a small red dot between the girl's eyebrows. It was just that it was hard to see because of her dark red skin. Why aren't you resting? He came to the bedside and looked at her. With one hand, he carried his daughter who was sleeping inside. He lowered his head and gently touched her little lips with his finger. He saw her break into a smile. Seeing this, Xianyuan Mose also smiled and praised. My daughter's eyes are like yours. They are so beautiful. She will definitely be a beauty when she grows up. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu pursed his lips and smiled. Of course our children won't be bad. However, the children are already born. Have you thought of a name for them? What should we name it? Xianyuan Mose looked up at her and said, I've already decided. Let's call our son Mu Chun and our daughter Mu Yu. Hearing these two names, Fengjiu was startled. Mu Chun? Mu Yu? She looked at him with a complicated gaze and asked, Why do you want to name them like this? Xianyuan Mose looked at her and said, Although I haven't said or mentioned anything, I have always remembered that Mo Chun died for us. If it wasn't for him, how could we have such a happy life now? Mu means to miss and admire, and Chun means him. I hope that in the future, the children will also know that there was such a person who died for us. Chapter 38-74. Hearing this, Fengjiu softly called out, Mu Chun Mu Yu? Xianyuan Mu Chun, Xianyuan Mu Yu. She looked at him and revealed a gentle smile. These names are really good. Xianyuan Mose held her hand with one hand and the child with the other. Ajio, Mo Chun doesn't have any children. I want our children to acknowledge him as their adoptive father. What do you think? Hearing this, Fengjiu's heart trembled. She didn't think that he would make such an arrangement. For a moment she was speechless. Mo Chun died for them. She had always felt guilty and owed him. If their children could acknowledge him as their adoptive father, that would be the best. Okay. Her eyes reddened as she nodded. Xianyuan Mose let go of her hand and touched her face instead. You're in confinement, so don't be too emotional. Rest well and don't sit too often. Just lie down more often. As he spoke, he took the other child from her arms and said, You should sleep. I'll take the children to the outer room. Fengjiu responded. She watched as he called for Ling Shuang to come in and help carry the child away. Only then did she lie down and close her eyes. Although cultivators like them didn't have to go through confinement like ordinary women, it was better to take care of their bodies as much as possible. This way, they wouldn't be left with any lingering illnesses in the future. Perhaps it was because the matter on her mind had been settled, but she felt very relaxed. Not long after, she fell into a deep slumber. As the night fell, laughter filled the small house in the middle of the lake. Delicious wine and food were placed on the table. Du Fan and the others sat on the side and rested. Luo Yu grinned and said, Today's wine is a good wine that I've kept for a long time. Later, you should all drink a few more cups. I'm only willing to let you drink, because it's a joyous occasion like the little master's birth. Ha 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 ha. Alright. We'll definitely drink a lot later. But before we get drunk, you can't lie down. Du Fan laughed and patted his shoulder. With my alcohol tolerance, how could I lie down? Just wait and see. Tonight, even if all of you are dead drunk, I will still be sitting sober. Luo Yu said with a smile. He glanced outside and said, Why isn't Qi Kong here yet? Does he have so many things to do in the City Lord Mansion? Guimo glanced at the sky and said, The sky is dark now. It's still early. At this moment, Ling Hua, who was walking towards the front yard, heard a knock on the door and walked towards it. The servant had already invited the person in. When he saw that it was Genie Feng, he smiled and went up to him. Commander Jean, please come in. Young Master Ling. Genie Feng cupped his fists and bowed. As he followed him inside, he said, I didn't expect that everyone would send me an invitation. This Jean is really flattered. Ling Hua smiled warmly and said, Commander Jean is a man of honor and has a relationship with us. Now that the City Lord Mansion is celebrating, we naturally hope to share in the joy. As the two spoke, they arrived at the front yard. Looking at the people in the yard, Genie Feng bowed to them and then handed something to Ling Hua. This is a small gift to congratulate Madame Xianyuan on giving birth to Lin. Commander Jean is too kind. I thank Commander Jean on behalf of my master. Ling Hua accepted the gift and stored it in his space. Chapter 3875. When Genie Feng heard this, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, It's hard to refuse such great hospitality. I won't leave until I'm drunk. Looks like we're late. You've already served the wine and dishes. A laughing voice rang out. Everyone turned around and saw Qi Kong and Duan Yunhe walking over together. When Du Fan saw them, he smiled and said, We've been waiting for you guys. The wine today is from Luo Yu's collection. Then I'm in for a treat today, Duan Yunhe said with a smile. He took out a congratulatory gift and said, Here are some small things. Thank you. Ling Hua took the gift and stored it in her space. She said, My mistress is still in confinement, so we can make ourselves comfortable. Please take a seat. Thus, everyone sat down and started chatting. They poured wine and picked up food to eat. They were lively in the front courtyard, while Xianyuan Mose accompanied the two children and Fengjiu in the back courtyard. Ling Hua and the others waited on them in the courtyard. That night, they drank until midnight before everyone supported each other to rest. Duan Yunhe and Genie Feng also stayed in the small house at the center of the lake because they were drunk. They only left at noon the next day. The days quietly passed in a warm atmosphere. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In the main courtyard, Grey Wolf was carefully carrying a white and tender child. With a curious expression, he said, Strange, this little master was so wrinkled when he was just born. How did he grow so white and tender in just 3 months? How did he grow so cute? Look at her, she's so beautiful. He couldn't help but reach out a hand to touch the child's face. It was smooth and tender and had the unique milky scent of a baby. His heart melted at the sight of it. What? Suddenly, the child started crying. When she started crying, Hui Lang panicked. He anxiously coaxed her. Don't cry, don't cry. I won't touch you. However, as soon as he finished speaking, his body couldn't help but stiffen. His chest was warm and moist, causing him to stand there dumbfounded. Ha 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 ha. Look, the little mistress peed all over him again. Luo Yu slapped his thigh and laughed heartily. Seeing Hui Lang's frozen expression, he gloated. Bai Qingqing smiled and walked forward. Let me help the little master change. She took the child from Grey Wolf's hands and carried him into the house. Ha ha! Little Mu Yu, who was being held in Ling Hua's arms, giggled when she heard everyone laughing. The little child's bright eyes narrowed into a line. No matter how one looked at her, she was adorable. Little Yu is smiling, look. Ling Hua warmly said. When he saw his little master smiling, he couldn't help but smile as well. The 3-month-old children were fair and tender. They had already grown up and would giggle when they were teased. Therefore, everyone liked to play with them when they had nothing to do. Feng Jiu and Xianyuan Mose were in the room. She was pricking the acupuncture points on his feet with silver needles and asked, How is it? Do you feel anything? No. Xianyuan Mose said. He looked at his legs with deep eyes. Hearing this, Feng Jiu sighed softly in her heart. She smiled and said, It's okay. There will always be a way. Later, I'll try another prescription. Xianyuan Mose looked at her and said, It's okay. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I'm fine like this. Feng Jiu put away the silver needles and sat next to him. Mose, I want to go to the Myriad Buddhist sect. Chapter 3876. Feng Jiu said with a smile, The child has been born, the confinement period is over, and her body has recovered well, so I plan to leave after a few days. However, the child is still young, so I want to take him with me. Moreover, we have always been together more than apart, so this time I hope you can also accompany me. Well, the child and I will accompany you. Xianyuan Mose showed a smile, held her hand and said, At that time, we will settle down in a nearby place, and you can do what you want to do. Well, then I will tell them later and let them prepare. Feng Jiu stood up with a smile, pushed the wheelchair and said, Let's go and see the child. The two went out, and when they came outside they saw that they were all surrounding the two children. After a while, one child was hugged by the other, and the child did not cry or make a fuss. Instead, they giggled. I know it is you without looking. Xianyuan Mose came out of the door, and after seeing this scene, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Thinking about it, only you who loved to laugh, would let them fight to hug her without crying or making a fuss. If it was Chun he would have cried long ago. Master, do you think the little masters have a problem with me? Why do they urinate on me every time I hug them? Hui Lang came to Xianyuan Mose with a bitter face and said. Xianyuan Mose glanced at him, and said with a low and magnetic voice and a smile, That is because they take special care of you. Ha 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 ha, yes, it is because the little masters take special care of you. Luo Yu at one side laughed, winked at Hui Lang and said, I remember that when the little masters were born, the first sentence you said was that they were very ugly. Ha ha ha, wait and see. When they grow up, I will tell them about it. Hearing this, Hui Lang immediately cried, Ah, don't. Luo Yu, are you still my good brother? At that time, I didn't mean to. Yes. You accidentally said what you were thinking. I know. Luo Yu nodded cooperatively, and couldn't help but grin. Looking at Hui Lang's anxious face, everyone laughed. Come, let me hold him, Feng Jiu said as he walked in front of Fan Lin and took the child from his arms. Haha, as soon as the child was in her arms, it seemed to smell the familiar scent on her body. Immediately, it giggled happily. Its little face rubbed against Feng Jiu's arms like a kitten. Master, Why are the spiritual auras of the two little masters so abundant? They haven't cultivated yet, but the aura on their bodies seems to be flowing in their bodies. Many people were puzzled. Logically speaking, shouldn't he wait until he was cultivating before drawing qi into his body? But the spiritual auras of the two little masters seemed to be innate and extremely pure, which really puzzled him. Fengjiu smiled slightly and hugged her daughter. They have innate bodies. Before they were born, they had already absorbed the spiritual aura in my body, so they can't be compared to ordinary children. Saying this, her voice paused and she smiled. Moreover, they have received the blessings and cleansing of their spirits from the various monarchs. In the future, their cultivation will advance by leaps and bounds. Chapter 38-77. By the way, you should arrange the things at hand. We'll set off for the Myriad Buddhist sect in a few days, Fengjiu said. Hearing this, everyone was stunned. They looked at each other and asked, Master, where's the Myriad Buddhist sect? They had lived here for almost a year. Were they going to leave now? Let Qi Kong tell you the details later. Fan Lin nodded and said, Well, I'll go back and arrange the things in the medicine tower. He paused and asked, Master, will you come back here in the future? Maybe, maybe not, but the Spirit Immortal City is a big town, and the Lingshao Celestial Sect is here. Maybe I'll have a chance to come back in the future. Whether they would come back or not depended on whether it was necessary. They had planned to stay here for a while, but now the people here knew their identities, and it was inconvenient for them to go in and out. It didn't matter whether they stayed or not. Hearing this, everyone nodded and said, Well, let's go and prepare. Qingqing, you and Qin Xin go out and buy some things that the children need. There are many things in this city that can't be found anywhere else. Buy more things that you need in case you need them on the way. Fengjiu told them to go out. All right. The two of them replied. Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose were playing with the children in the yard, while the others went to arrange the things at hand. In the East City Lord's mansion, many people came to the mansion to tell Qi Kong about Fengjiu's idea. Qi Kong pondered for a while and said, Since we're going to leave, I'll have to leave as the city lord. How about this? Let's go back and discuss with our master who will take over the city lord's mansion. Many people looked at him and asked, Do you have a candidate? Qi Kong smiled and said, I prefer Genie Feng, the leader of the first mercenary group. If he takes over the East City Lord's mansion, it will be more convenient for us to do things in the future. In that case, let's go. Let's go back and talk to our master. Thus, the two of them headed towards the small building in the center of the lake. In the main courtyard, when Qi Kong told Fengjiu his idea, Fengjiu nodded and said, All right, we'll do as you say. However, if he takes over the position of East City Lord, I'm sure the people in the city won't accept it. Therefore, ask the people from the High Firmament Celestial Sect to go over and arrange this matter. All right, then I'll do it now. Qi Kong said, bowed and retreated. Wow. After Qi Kong left, the child burst into tears. Xianyuan Mose, who was standing to the side, saw his daughter crying as well as his son in Fengjiu's arms. He said, Maybe he's hungry. Come, give them to me. I'll carry them into the room to feed them. She stepped forward to take the children and carried both of them into the room. After seeing her enter the room, Xianyuan Mose looked at Qin Xin in the courtyard and asked, What stew did you make for her today? Qin Xin replied, Today's stew is spiritual pig trotter soup. However, our master thought it was a little greasy, so he prepared some lighter stew. Go to the kitchen and bring some here. Xianyuan Mose said and motioned for her to go to the kitchen and bring some stew. Yes. Qinxin bent her knees and bowed, then left. Chapter 38-78. Xianyuan Mose came in and saw her sitting by the bed with the two children in her arms. She had a smile on her face, and her eyes were gentle and loving. His heart softened. This was his wife and children. They were the people he wanted to protect. They were the most important family in his life. Looking at them and thinking about the black lotus of destruction that was now in the hands of the Devil Lord, he narrowed his eyes and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. He placed one hand on his knees, and his eyes were unreadable. Fengjiu put the two children on the bed. Seeing him staring at her feet by the door, she couldn't help but feel her heart ache. She walked forward and came to his side. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," Xianyuan Mose said as he held her hand and looked inside. "Are the children asleep?" "Yes, they are asleep." Fengjiu smiled and said, "The two of them are just like Hao when he was young. They also sleep after eating. Speaking of which, we haven't seen Hao for a long time. I wonder how he is now." Thinking of Hao, who had been by her side for 5 years, Fengjiu couldn't help but miss him. Back then, she had let him go back with his biological parent. It had been more than a year now. That child was already 6 years old. She wondered how much taller he had grown. "Don't worry. He is going back to his biological parent. They will treat him very well," Xianyuan Mose said and said to Fengjiu, "I asked Qin Xian to bring you some stew. Drink some." Upon hearing this, Fengjiu put her hand on her forehead and said helplessly, "Drink again? Look at how round my waist has become after my confinement." Xianyuan Mose's lips curved slightly. He stroked her waist with one hand and said, "No, this is also very good. I like it." Fengjiu saw him stroking her waist with one hand and saying such words. She glanced at him with her beautiful eyes and said, "Don't be so naughty." "Yama Lord, Master, the stew is here." In the courtyard outside, Qin Xian put the stew on the table. The two people in the room looked at each other, pursed their lips and smiled, then walked out. In the High Firmament Celestial Sect, everyone had gathered in the main hall because of Qi Kang's arrival. Only a few people in the High Firmament Celestial Sect had seen him before. Since he was with the sovereign, they couldn't help but size him up. Duan Yun he looked at Qi Kang and said, "Sect Master is currently in closed-door cultivation, so he can't come out. If there's anything you need, you can tell us. Everyone here is an elder and a peak master of the High Firmament Celestial Sect." Upon hearing this, Qi Kang nodded and said, "There's only one reason I'm here today. I'd like to pass the position of East City Governor to the leader of the first mercenary group. However, if he takes over my position halfway, the people in the city will be dissatisfied. Therefore, I hope the High Firmament Celestial Sect can make the arrangements." Hearing this, everyone was slightly surprised and couldn't help but look at each other. One of the elders asked, "What about you? Why aren't you the East City Lord anymore? Aren't you doing well?" "We're preparing to leave and probably won't be back in a short period of time. Therefore, I can't continue to be the East City Governor," Qi Kang said in a deep voice. He looked at everyone and said, "The quality of a city governor and his ability are related to everything in the city. Therefore, I've chosen Jin Yifeng to replace him." He paused and said, "This matter was approved by my master. I hope you can make the appropriate arrangements." Chapter 3879. They chatted for a while in the main hall before the great elder asked Duan Yunhe to send him off. As they walked out, Duan Yunhe asked, "Where are you going?" "I've been out for many years and know many places. If you need my help, just let me know." Qi Kang smiled and said, "If we need your help, we won't stand on ceremony." "All right, I should go back now. You don't have to send me off. Goodbye. I'll probably go over tomorrow to help you deal with the handover of the East City Lord. See you tomorrow," Duan Yunhe said as he sent him to the sect gate. Qi Kang responded, then gathered his qi and rode on his sword, heading towards Spirit Immortal City. He still had to inform the first mercenary group so that Jin Yifeng could be prepared. When he arrived at the first mercenary group from the High Firmament Immortal Sect, the sky was already dark. Just as he was about to ask the mercenaries to go in and inform them, he saw a mercenary carrying wine walk over. When the mercenary saw him, he was startled and quickly walked over. "East City Lord? Are you looking for our leader?" the mercenary asked. He was surprised. He didn't expect such a famous person to come to their mercenary group. Yes. Is your leader here? Chi Kong asked. Yes, yes. The leader is inside. I'll bring you in, the mercenary said as he led the way. When the mercenaries in the mercenary group saw Chi Kong, they immediately rushed to inform their leader. A mercenary walked over to Genie Feng and said anxiously, Leader, the East City Lord is here. Genie Feng was startled. He looked up and saw that the person walking behind the mercenary was Chi Kong. He immediately stood up and greeted him. Why is the East City Lord here? Is there something you need? He asked as he invited him in and sat down. Chi Kong nodded at him and sat down. When he saw that the mercenaries had left, he said, I'm here today because I have something to tell you. Please sit. Genie Feng looked at him with a serious expression. Why did he come here so late at night? Furthermore, he came here personally. Was there something important? It's like this. We're preparing to leave, so we plan to let you take over the position of City Lord of the East District. Upon hearing this, Genie Feng was slightly surprised. You're leaving? Was he not planning to come back? You want to go too? Yes, wherever my master goes, we will follow. Chi Kong looked at him and said, It would be best if you could take over the position of City Lord of the Eastern District. Genie Feng waved his hand and said, No, no. If I take over, the aristocratic families in the city will not accept it. After all, I am someone who lost the election. How can I be qualified to take over the position of City Lord of the East District? This is not acceptable. I've already gone to the Lingshao Celestial Sect. They will make the arrangements. With them and my master's instructions, no one in the city will dare to have any opinions about you. Chi Kong smiled and looked at him. We've known each other for some time. We know your character. We made the decision after careful consideration to let you take over the position of City Lord of the East District. We believe that you will not disappoint us. Chapter 3880. After sitting at Genie Feng's place for a while, and chatting with him about the current situation in the East City Lord Mansion, Chi Kong got up and left. After sending Chi Kong off, Genie Feng stood there for a long time without moving, but he felt a little emotional. He had gotten to know them by a freak combination of factors. He did not expect that they would give up the position of the East City Lord just like that. After returning to the small house in the center of the lake, Chi Kong reported the matter to Fengjiu and returned to the East City Lord Mansion. At noon the next day, the people from the High Firmament Celestial Sect arrived. When the news of Genie Feng taking over the position of the East City Lord spread, the entire Spirit Immortal City was shocked. East City Lord Chi Kong had only taken over for a short period of time, so why did he give up so quickly? What was the reason? They guessed, but no one knew that they were going to leave. After all, they had only stayed here for a short period of time, and there were 2 children who were only a few months old in the mansion. No one would expect them to leave at this time. However, no one objected to Genie Feng taking over other than discussing it. The strength of Genie Feng, the leader of the number 1 mercenary group, was obvious to all. Moreover, this matter was personally announced by the High Firmament Celestial Sect and the current Eastern City Lord, Chi Kong, so no one would say anything. While the East City Lord Mansion was busy with the handover, in the small house in the center of the lake, Fengjiu and Xianyuan Mose were idle all day, playing with their children and enjoying the time together as a family. Especially as they watched their 2 children grow up day by day and become more beautiful day by day, their hearts were filled with boundless pride and satisfaction. After settling the matters in the Spirit Immortal City, they were not in a hurry to leave. Instead, they stayed for another half a month before preparing to leave. Early in the morning, before the sky was bright, a luxurious carriage quietly went out of the city gate. Just like when they came, they left quietly and did not disturb anyone. When the people in the Spirit Immortal City learned that the people in the small house in the center of the lake had left, another half a month had passed. Apart from the initial discussion, gradually, as the days passed, the people in the city gradually forgot about them, as if they had never existed. On a mountain road, Fengjiu and the others, who had been walking leisurely for half a month, stopped and rested on the side of the road. The Million Buddhist sect was said to be in the westernmost place. Because their children were still young, they were not in a hurry to leave. Instead, they walked slowly as if they were on a scenic tour. Along the way, Fengjiu was cultivating. In half a month, she was about to break through the threshold and advance. One had to know that ever since her strength had regressed, she had been stagnant. Perhaps it was because her body and mind had relaxed during this period of time that her state of mind had changed. She had faintly touched the threshold. "Drink some water." Xianyuan Mose handed her the water and said, "We have been away for a long time, so your diet is not as good as the one in the small house in the center of the lake. Why don't we find a place to rest for a few days and let you recuperate?" Hearing this, Fengjiu pursed her lips and smiled, saying, "I'm fine now. Qin Xian and the others made soup for me on the way." Chapter 38-81. Fengjiu smiled and casually said, "I didn't have enough rest on the road, and I'm also carrying 2 children. Naturally, I'll be a bit skinnier. Don't worry. My body is very good and I know that my body's nutrition can't keep up." Seeing her like this, Xianyuan Mose paused for a moment and said, "How about you help the 2 children stop drinking milk? Just let them eat some porridge." Hearing this, Fengjiu burst out laughing. She glanced at him with a smile in her clear eyes and said, "It's only been 4 months. How can they stop? They'll be malnourished." As she said this, she reached out to hold his hand and smiled. All right. I'll drink more soup to nourish my body. How about this? I think this place is pretty good, so I won't be leaving today. Let's rest here first and let Qin Xian and the rest make some delicious food?" Xianyuan Mose looked around and saw that there was a grassland in front of them and a small river downhill. On the other side of the mountain road was a forest, and there was no wind village in front or behind the road. He had no choice but to nod his head. "And then let's rest here." As soon as he finished speaking, Fengjiu smiled and said to Ling Shuang, "Go and tell them to rest here tonight and let them prepare. Let Qin Xian prepare some stewed soup." Xianyuan Mose instructed. "Yes," Ling Shuang replied. She glanced at the 2 of them with a smile in her eyes. On the grassland, Hui Lang moved forward to look at the child in Du Fan's arms. Seeing that there was no cinnabar between her eyebrows, he said, "This isn't little Yu. I think it's better for me to hold little Yu." As he said this, he walked over to Luo Yu and stretched out his hand. Come, let me hold her and play with her." Hearing this, Luo Yu raised his eyebrows and looked at him. "Hui Lang, you're quite bold. You actually dare to play with little master?" Hui Lang knew that he had misspoken. He smiled awkwardly and said, "It means to tease her for fun. That won't do. I just held him for a while. If you want to hold him, you should hold little Qin." Luo Yu turned sideways and avoided him, not letting him snatch the baby away. "Ai, it's not like you don't know. Every time I hug that little ancestor, he pees all over me. Little Yu is still more obedient. I still want to hug little Yu." Hui Lang grinned and looked expectantly at the child in Luo Yu's arms, who was blinking and giggling at him. "Look, little Yu is smiling at me. She wants me to hug her too. Give it to me, give it to me." Grey Wolf reached out his hand and looked at the tender little girl giggling at him. His heart almost melted when he saw the little girl's expression. "No." Luo Yu deliberately teased him. He carried the child and dodged again. "Little Yu, you also want Uncle Hui Lang to hug you, right?" Hui Lang moved forward and made faces to tease her. When he saw her giggling even more cheerfully, he couldn't help but giggle foolishly. Look, she wants me to hug her." Seeing this, Luo Yu smiled and handed the child to him. "I'll give it to you. But don't make her cry." I know. Little Yu won't cry," Hui Lang happily said. He carefully took the child and softly said, Little Yuer, quickly call me Uncle Huilang. Chapter 3882. Seeing that they were carrying the child, Fengjiu said to Xianyuan Mose, "Let's go to the carriage. I'll help you massage the acupuncture points on your feet and move your muscles." Okay. Xianyuan Mose responded and returned to the carriage with her. Outside, other than the two with the child, everyone else began to get busy. Some set up small tents, some picked up branches to start a fire, some went fishing, and some went to the small forest to look for game. As the sky gradually darkened, smoke rose in spirals, and the smell of food filled the air at night. The child cried because of hunger. Fengjiu got up to feed him, and Xianyuan Mose also got up to carry the other child. In the darkness of the night, the sound of the child crying was very clear on the mountain path. Gradually, the surrounding wind seemed to become stronger, whistling like the howling of ghosts and wolves. The people who were originally sleeping felt the sudden change in the atmosphere, and quickly got up to guard the carriage. Torches lit up the surroundings, but it was pitch black. There was nothing but an unusually strong night wind. Whoosh! There's something wrong with this wind, Huilang said as he swung his arms and stared at the surroundings. It's a yin wind. Qikong stared at the darkness and said, "It seems that this place is not very clean. Stay alert, don't let those dirty things startle the little masters," Du Fan said as he waved his hand and set up a barrier around the carriage. The children were different from them. It would be bad if they were accidentally startled. In the carriage, Fengjiu finished feeding one child and went to feed the other. She was not very worried about what was going on outside. After all, on this continent, there were very few people who could be Du Fan's opponents, whether it was cultivators or anything else. If anything happened, they could deal with it. Xianyuan Mose looked at the child who was full, but blinked her eyes and stared at him. He couldn't help but smile. "Look at our daughter, she's not sleeping even though she's full. She went to bed early today. She probably isn't sleepy anymore," Fengjiu said with a smile. She looked at her daughter's bright eyes and her chubby cheeks. She was extremely adorable, just like a treasure. As the two people in the carriage were talking, Fengjiu felt a murderous aura coming towards her. She frowned and hid the smile on her face. Before she could do anything, Xianyuan Mose waved his hand and strengthened the enchantment around the carriage, isolating it from the outside aura and sound. "Stay here with the child. I'll go out and take a look." As he spoke, he placed the child in his arms beside her and prepared to go outside to take a look. This was because the murderous aura he felt earlier was extraordinary, and it gave him a bad premonition. Fengjiu reached out to hold him back and said, "Let's wait for a moment. Let them try to deal with it first." Xianyuan Mose paused, then said, "With their strength, it won't be a problem for them to deal with strong cultivators. However, if it's against such a strong murderous aura, they're probably still lacking." His wife and child were here. If the murderous aura was too strong, it might hurt the child. Thus, he felt more at ease going out to take a look. Seeing this, Fengjiu paused for a moment and let go of his hand, saying, "Then be careful." Xianyuan Mose pursed his lips and smiled. "And don't worry." With that, he got off the carriage first. Chapter 3883. They didn't see that after Qin Xian's body trembled at that moment, a trace of blood flashed across her eyes. In the howling baleful yin wind, she suddenly raised her hand to grab Ling Hua beside her. She didn't have a weapon in her hand, but when she raised her finger, a wave of baleful yin qi formed. Like a sharp object, she stabbed it at Ling Hua with a ruthless and murderous speed. Ling Hua only felt a gust of baleful yin wind accompanied by a murderous intent. He instinctively looked to his side and saw her ferocious face filled with murderous intent. Her figure suddenly rushed towards him. He raised his hand to block, but unexpectedly, her strength was so great that he didn't notice it. His sleeve was torn by her fingers, and blood seeped out, dyeing the crescent moon robe red. "Be careful!" The surrounding people shouted as they rushed forward. However, Qin Xian's speed was even faster. especially when she was only a step away from Ling Hua. Just as her next attack was about to land on Ling Hua's heart, a powerful pressure abruptly gushed out, and with a swoosh, Qin Xian was sent flying. Bang! A shrill scream came out of Qin Xian's mouth, but it didn't sound like Qin Xian's usual voice. Hearing it, everyone felt their hair stand on end. Du Fan and the others looked back and saw Xianyuan Mose, who was originally in the carriage, sitting outside. His body was still surging with baleful yin qi. Everyone couldn't help but call out to him. Yama Lord! Xianyuan Mose flicked his sleeve and took out the wheelchair that he had put away in his space. He jumped into the air and sat on the wheelchair. His gaze swept past Du Fan and the others and fell on Qin Xian, who was lying on the ground and screaming. He said to them, "This is an extremely powerful baleful yin qi. Be careful not to be possessed by it." Hearing this, everyone's heart sank. They looked at Qin Xian with some worry. Yama Lord, Qin Xian is, the baleful yin has possessed her. At this moment she is already being controlled, Xianyuan Mose said in a deep voice. He saw Ling Hua's face gradually turn pale, and he was on the verge of collapsing. Many, quickly help Ling Hua expel the yin qi from his body. Lung Shuang, protect them. Xianyuan Mose immediately said in a low voice as he said to them, "If you don't notice your injuries, if the baleful yin qi enters your body, it will become uncontrollable." Yes. Everyone responded at once. Many people quickly went up and brought Ling Hua to the back. Ling Hua looked worried as he came to their side and set up a barrier to protect them. Qin Xian, who was lying on the ground, screamed. She jumped up and rushed towards them again. Du Fan and the others were afraid that they would kill Qin Xian if they attacked too fiercely, so they didn't dare to use their full strength. But in this way they were gradually put into a passive position. Here, the baleful yin qi in the air became more and more powerful. One of the baleful yin qi rose from the ground and pierced through the air like a cold sword. Its momentum was so strong that it had already surpassed Qin Xian's strength. They quickly dodged. Thinking that their master and the two little masters were still in the carriage, they gritted their teeth and said, "No matter what, let's capture her first." As soon as they finished speaking, several people surrounded her and attacked her fiercely. Under their siege, she was gradually at a disadvantage. Chapter 38-84. Just as Du Fan couldn't bear the sharp pain and retreated, Qin Xian attacked him. Seeing this, Qi Kong and the others quickly attacked, but they were surrounded by a strong wind. The wind and sand rolled up, and they couldn't see what was in front of them. Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting in a wheelchair, had been watching quietly. When he saw that Qi Kong and the others were bound by the cold wind and Du Fan was in danger, he flicked his finger and a stream of air with a murderous aura attacked. Whoosh! Hiss! Qin Xian's knee was hit, and the pain seeped into her bones. It was so painful that she immediately knelt down. She turned her head abruptly, and a bloody light flashed in her eyes. She gritted her teeth and roared like a wild beast. Then she pounced on Xianyuan Mose. She leapt into the air with her body half bent, and her outstretched hand drew a sharp gust of wind in the air. However, before her attack could even get close, her entire body was sent flying by Xianyuan Mose. Bang! Ah! Her body fell heavily to the ground, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. She struggled to get up, but she felt a strong and suffocating aura coming at her. She held her head and screamed. She grabbed her hair with both hands and turned her head abruptly. Her blood-red eyes glared fiercely at Xianyuan Mose, and then she jumped into the small forest. Qin Xian! Everyone shouted and wanted to chase after her, but they heard Xianyuan Mose's voice. Wait! Xianyuan Mose looked at them and stopped them from following. He glanced at the small forest, and then looked at Du Fan. Du Fan, how are you? My divine sense is under attack. Du Fan's face was slightly pale. His condition was clearly not quite right. Xianyuan Mose narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, This dark specter is extremely powerful. Its strength is not on par with yours. Furthermore, the smell of blood on its body is extremely strong. I reckon that its hands are stained with the blood of many people. Its attack is very effective, especially when it damages the consciousness. If something goes wrong, the consequences will be very serious. He paused and looked at him, saying, "Go and rest for a while. Adjust your aura and heal yourself so that you won't be injured." Du Fan originally wanted to say that there was no need, but his body felt increasingly unwell. Moreover, once his spiritual sense was injured, it could be either light or heavy. In the end, he still replied, "Yes. Yama Lord, what about Qin Xian?" Fan Lin looked at him and asked worriedly, "Will she be okay? Will the Yin Fiend kill her?" Fengjiu lifted the curtain and got out of the carriage. Because of the enchantment and soundproof enchantment set up in the carriage, she did not know what was going on outside. However, when she came out and saw the situation, she knew that it was not good. Especially when she heard Fan Lin's words, she frowned. Since the Yin Fiend has possessed her body, it will not kill her easily. Right now, she will be fine. However, after being possessed by the Yin Fiend, her body will probably be very weak. Xianyuan Mo said. As soon as his voice fell, he seemed to sense something and turned to look at Fengjiu in the carriage. "Why did you come out?" "I was worried, so I came out to take a look." "What happened to Qin Xian?" Fengjiu asked. She got out of the carriage and walked towards him. When she saw that Ling Hua and Du Fan were both sitting on the ground and adjusting their breathing, she could not help but frown. Chapter 3885. Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at him and nodded. "Yes, no matter what, saving Qin Xian is the most important thing. Don't worry," Xianyuan Mo said and gestured for her to get into the carriage. After seeing her turn around and get into the carriage, he said to everyone, "I just said that this inspector's cultivation is on par with yours. If you fight it head-on, you will be slightly weaker than it. In addition, it is attached to Qin Xian's body, so you will be merciful. If you fight it head-on, you will not be able to gain the upper hand." Hearing this, everyone was silent and did not say a word. That's right, because the inspector was attached to Qin Xian's body, they did not dare to kill it. Moreover, the inspector was fatal to them, so if they fought it head-on, they would be at a disadvantage. "Master, according to your opinion, what should we do?" Hui Lang asked. "Since this thing has appeared here, then it must have a cave in the surroundings. Go and find where its cave is first, then come back and report. Remember, don't act rashly and alert it. If you encounter it, you must be 120% alert. If you are even the slightest bit careless, you will give the baleful Yin an opportunity to take advantage of." Hearing this, Hui Lang asked again, "Master, how can we find the inspector's acupoint? Where the Yin Qi gathers, it must be a place where there is little sunlight. The aura of resentment should be very strong. If you search according to these points, it should be in this small forest. As long as we find the inspector's acupoint, even if it escaped very far, it will appear in front of us." Xianyuan Mo said to them, "Qing Qing, stay here. The rest of you go together. Be careful." "Yes." The few of them replied and glanced at Ling Hua and Du Fan, who were sitting cross-legged and meditating. They said to Bai Qingqing, "Keep an eye on this place." "Yes, I will." Bai Qingqing replied and stood guard beside the carriage. Sitting in the wheelchair, Xianyuan Mo's looked at the night sky above the forest and his expression became more and more serious. Bai Qingqing saw him staring at the top of the forest and asked, "Yama Lord, why is this evil spirit so powerful?" Xianyuan Mo's glanced at her, and then shifted his gaze to the night sky above the little forest. He said, "That baleful Yin should have formed many years ago. It's so powerful because it feeds on the essence and blood of cultivators." His voice paused for a moment before he continued, "Moreover, the murderous aura and resentment above the small forest are soaring to the sky. Even if they go in, they might not be able to find the meridian point of the murderous aura. Then what should we do? Will they be in danger? Bai Qingqing asked. Xianyuan Mose pondered for a moment. He glanced at them, then went to the side of the carriage and lifted the curtain to look at Fengjiu and the two children inside. The two children refused to sleep and Fengjiu was coaxing them. When she saw Xianyuan Mose lift the curtain and look in, she asked, "What's wrong?" "I told Qi Kong and the others to go into the little forest to find the meridian point of the murderous aura. But when I looked up, I saw that the murderous aura and resentment in the sky above the little forest are alternating. I'm worried that they'll be in trouble if they go in." Hearing his words, Fengjiu smiled and said, "Then go in. I'll take care of the children. They'll be fine. We'll wait here for you to come out." "I'm worried." Chapter 3886. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Don't worry, Ling Shuang and the others are still here. Don't worry." Xianyuan Mose was still hesitating. However, at this moment, a cry of surprise came from the small forest. From the sound of it, it seemed to be Hui Lang's voice. He frowned and looked towards the small forest, his thin lips slightly pursed. "Quick, go and take a look. It's Hui Lang's voice. Something must have happened." Fengjiu urged him to go and take a look. With his cultivation at the peak of the Divine King stage, even if he could not stand up, his strength was not affected at all. If he went over, perhaps the matter would be resolved. Xianyuan Mose paused for a moment, then said, "Take the child and stay in the carriage. Don't come down. I'll go and take a look." "Okay," Fengjiu replied. He looked at him and said, "Be careful." Xianyuan Mose looked at Ling Shuang, Bai Qingqing and Many. He said, "Be vigilant and protect them well. Many, you go with Mose. Ling Shuang and Qingqing will be here. Justing Yi will be enough." Fengjiu gestured for him to go to Xianyuan Mose's side to take care of him. Many replied, "Yes." He immediately went to Xianyuan Mose's side. Xianyuan Mose wanted Many to stay, but before he could say anything, Fengjiu said, "Let Many go with you. I'm more at ease." Hearing this, he nodded and walked towards the small forest with many other people. Fengjiu watched them leave. He saw Xianyuan Mose sitting in his wheelchair, and Many pushed him from behind. The two of them rose into the air and flew towards the small forest. When they could no longer be seen, Fengjiu looked up at the night sky above the small forest. "I didn't feel it during the day, but after midnight, the Yin energy is so strong," she said softly. She was a little surprised. She didn't expect that there would be such a strong Yin Qi in a place like this. At this moment, Ling Hua withdrew his aura and slowly exhaled before opening his eyes. He looked at the wound on his hand and stood up. "Master." Fengjiu lifted the curtain with one hand, looked at him and asked, "How are you? Are you feeling better?" "I'm better, but I still feel a trace of cold Yin Qi in my body," Ling Hua said. He clenched his fist and felt that his palm was also cold. Fengjiu looked at his expression and said, "Come closer." Ling Hua obeyed and came to the side of the carriage. He reached out his hand at her signal. Ling Shuang was a little worried as he watched from the side. Seeing his master take Ling Hua's pulse and withdraw his hand after a while, he asked, "Master, how is he?" Fengjiu's expression hardened slightly. "This Yin Qi is much stronger than I thought. The Yin Qi in your body hasn't been completely removed." As she spoke, she glanced at the two children waving their little hands on the soft couch. She called out Tun Yun and accompanied them to play in the carriage. She then walked out of the carriage. She grabbed Ling Hua's injured hand and examined the wound. Then, she circulated the spiritual energy in her body. She gathered spiritual energy in her other hand and pushed it up through her palm. Ling Hua only felt a wave of spiritual energy carrying the heat of the phoenix's flames move through his veins. As it flowed, he felt a wave of warmth surge through his body, dispersing the wave of cold Yin Qi in his body. Fengjiu circulated her Qi to help force out the remaining Yin Qi in his body. Only when she saw threads of cold air emerge from his forehead did she withdraw her hand, saying, "Ling Shuang, help him bandage his wound. Chapter 3887. The chilly wind swept over like a sea current, causing the surrounding weeds on the ground to bend. In the small forest on the other side of the mountain path, the leaves rustled as if someone was crazily shaking the branches. Be careful. Fengjiu warned them to be careful. At the same time, she quickly returned to the horse carriage and sent the two children and Tun Yun into the space. After sending the two children into the space, she finally felt relieved. She had never been afraid of danger. However, after having two children, she was worried that they would be hurt because they were defenseless. Now that she had sent them into the space, she felt a little more at ease. In her opinion, there was nowhere safer than in her space. She didn't have to worry about them getting hurt in the space. Moreover, there were a few little beasts accompanying them in the space. This way, she could face any danger with ease. She didn't attack them directly. Instead, she set up a barrier and asked them to stay inside. The chilly wind rolled up from the ground. When it approached the horse carriage, it was blocked by the barrier. At this moment, a black shadow gradually took shape in the night sky. It was like a shadow. She couldn't see its face clearly. She only knew that it had a pair of blood-red eyes. The murderous aura and resentment that emanated from its body were extremely strong. The two auras were attacking the barrier, as if trying to break it open. Fengjiu stared at the shadow in front of them and then looked towards the woods. She was surprised. This isn't the one from before. Ling Shuang and Bai Qingqing heard this and looked at each other. The one from before possessed Qin Xian's body. It seemed to be a woman. The murderous aura wasn't as strong as this one. This one seems to be a man. It's even more powerful than the one from before. Then it should be a pair. Fengjiu said thoughtfully. Master, what should we do now? Bai Qingqing asked. Wait. Fengjiu said. Wait until they find the acupoints of these two Yin spirits. As long as they clean up the area, we don't need to do anything. They will disappear naturally. But, she paused and looked at Ling Shuang and Bai Qingqing. She said, women belong to the Yin, so it's easier for them to be possessed. You two have to be careful. Stay alert. Hearing this, the two of them became alert and nodded solemnly. Yes, we will. Master, how long can this barrier last? Leng Hua watched as the Yin spectre continued to attack the barrier. He was worried that the barrier wouldn't be able to withstand its repeated attack. That's hard to say. We'll have to see how powerful it is. As Fengjiu spoke, he stood by the side of the carriage and did not move. He only looked at the Yin spectre, and no one knew what he was thinking. Ling Hua pondered for a moment before voicing the questions in his heart. Master, if it were any other time, this kind of evil spirit wouldn't dare to approach us. Why would it dare to attack us like this? Moreover, it's obvious that it's luring the tiger away from the mountain. It seems like it's coming for us. Hearing his words, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. It's coming for us. No, it's coming for the two children. At this point, Fengjiu's expression turned cold, and a murderous look flashed across his clear eyes. This Yin spectre was targeting his children. Chapter 3888. Innate spiritual bodies and babies less than a year old. In the eyes of the Yin spectre, these two children are great nourishment. Fengjiu said coldly. She stared at the Yin spectre that was hitting the barrier, and a fierce, murderous intent flashed across her eyes. Ling Hua and the others' expressions froze. To be able to sense the existence of the two children and be so strong, these two Yin spectres were really not ordinary. Whoosh! Bang! A powerful air current whistled and hit the barrier. When the two air currents collided, a loud bang was heard. The air current swayed with a whoosh, and the Yin spectre hit the barrier again, ferociously trying to pounce into the barrier. Fengjiu looked on coldly. She did not intend to make a move, but when she thought that the Yin spectre was targeting her children, a murderous intent surged in her heart. She stretched out her hand, and with a flash of light, the Qingfeng sword that she rarely used appeared in her hand. All of you stay in the barrier and don't go out. I'll deal with this thing, she said slowly. Just as she was about to go out, she saw Ling Hua stop her. Master, your strength has not recovered yet. The Yama Lord said that the inspector's strength was on par with ours. This one is even stronger. If you go up against it, it's just a inspector. What's there to be afraid of? Fengjiu said. She raised her hand and wiped the Qingfeng sword in her hand, saying, My current strength is more than enough to deal with it. But, Ling Hua wanted to say more, but he saw that she had already gathered her energy and was heading out. He could not stop her even if he wanted to. Let's wait and see first. If it doesn't work, we can go out and help, Ling Hua said. Looking at his master outside, his spiritual aura surged. With a flip of his hand, a flame attacked. When the inspector saw the scorching flame coming, it roared and quickly retreated. Then, it went around to the side and pounced. From the black shadow, a pair of ghost claws seemed to reach out and attack Fengjiu's heart. Seeing this scene, Ling Hua and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. Their breaths were stuck in their throats until they saw their master slashing his sword at the pair of ghost claws. Only then did they finally calm down. The bell at her waist rang, but it was covered by the sound of the air current and the whistling cold wind. A bone-piercing inspector filled the surroundings, forming the appearance of a ferocious beast that pounced at her with its mouth wide open. Feng Jiu immediately turned her palm, and a spiritual force shot out from her palm. With a whoosh, a crimson flame burst out from the long sword in her hand. The flame soared, and the airflow whistled. Instead of retreating, she advanced. Holding the flaming Qingfeng sword in one hand, she went up to meet the attack. With a leap, she leaped into the air, and the long sword in her hand, which contained the power to split heaven and earth, slashed down from above. How dare you have ideas than us? I will definitely destroy your soul and make you unable to reincarnate. Die for me. Her cold voice contained a frightening murderous aura. Accompanied by her clear shout, a sharp sword that shot out flames also slashed down from above. With an irresistible force, it viciously slashed towards the inspectors below. A terrifying aura that contained an ancient might surged towards the baleful spirit, causing it to retreat in shock. However, when it raised its head to look, it saw that the flaming sword above its head had practically blocked its path of retreat, causing it to have nowhere to run. No! A hoarse roar came from the inspector's mouth. It was like a howl, shrill and panicked. The sound soared into the sky and spread in the night. It was extremely clear. Chapter 3889. Although he couldn't see through the forest, he knew that something had happened. Master, something seems to have happened to Madame. Hui Lang walked to Xianyuan Mo's side and looked worriedly in the direction of the small forest. When he found the location of the Yin Fiend's acupuncture point, he was bewitched. It was as if he had walked into a hell filled with Yin Fiends and demons. He couldn't find a way out and was even attacked by some Yin Fiends. Fortunately, his master rushed over and dragged him out of the place of extreme Yin. Qi Kong and the others also stopped what they were doing and turned around to take a look. They were all somewhat worried. Hurry up! Dig out what's underground, Xianyuan Mo said in a deep voice. When they heard this, all of them hurriedly restrained their minds and continued digging. Wei Feng and the others stood within the hole they'd come out from and dug out the soil within it. The further they dug, the more they felt a strand of Yin Qi shoot up from beneath their feet. At this moment, when they dug out a white bone, the Yin Fiend, who was recuperating in the depths of the small forest, suddenly trembled and jumped up. She opened her arms and roared. In the next moment, she rushed into the forest as if she had gone mad. At this moment, Qin Xian was possessed. Her hair was messy and her body was covered in soil. Her eyes were bloodshot and her face was full of killing intent. Her figure flitted through the forest and in the night, a gust of Yin Qi was swept up. When Xianyuan Mo, who was sitting in a wheelchair, sensed the Yin Qi coming from afar, a dark light flashed through his sharp black eyes and he looked in a certain direction in the forest. If there was still Yin Fiend there, Then what kind of fiend was fighting with Feng Jiu and the others? Dig! He shouted in a deep voice and looked at the people in the hole. Bones were dug out by them one after another. Looking at the bones, Qi Kong said, "Yama Lord, there isn't one set of bones here. There should be two sets." Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo said, "Find their skulls and destroy them." What made Qi Kong and the others feel strange was that they had found the bones, but they couldn't find the skull. They could only dig as they searched. Since the bones were here, the skull should also be here. Perhaps it was just hidden deeper. However, before they could dig out the skull, they saw Qin Xian rush out of the tree and pounce at them with a roar. "Qin Xian!" they instinctively called out, but when they came back to their senses and were about to block her, she was already sent flying. "Keep digging," Xianyuan Mo said in a deep voice. His hands formed a seal in front of him. The seal was as clear as a meat bun, and along with a surge of spiritual aura, it surged out and enveloped Heart of the Zither, who was pouncing forward. Ah! The imprint was formed by spiritual power, and it pressed down on Qin Xian, pressing her against a tree not far away. The ancient aura on the imprint was like shackles that bound the fiend, tightly binding her hands and feet, making her unable to break free. "Found it!" Wei Feng shouted in surprise and dug out a skull from the soil. "There's one here too," many people said and dug out another skull. "Destroy it," Xianyuan Mo said in a deep voice. Chapter 3890. The two of them were startled and could not help but try again. However, they only saw fresh blood seeping out of the skulls, and the spectre attached to Qin Xian's body shrieked miserably. "Bring it over," Xianyuan Mo said in a low voice, his deep gaze landing on the two skulls. At the same time, the spectre that was fighting with Feng Jiu had already suffered a blow from Feng Jiu, and its strength had been greatly reduced. It was forced to retreat in defeat. In addition to the heart-wrenching pain that came from its soul, it was unable to continue fighting. It shrieked and wanted to rush back into the small forest. However, how could Feng Jiu let it escape at this time? Seeing the shadow escape into the small forest, she immediately threw the emerald-edged sword in her hand into the air. A flame surged on the blade with a whoosh. Following her clear cry, the emerald-edged sword, which contained her life's flame, suddenly attacked the shadow with a whoosh. Whoosh! Whoosh! The fierce sound of air surged and the sound of flames whistled. Just as the shadow was about to escape into the small forest, the emerald-edged sword pierced through it from behind. As the spectre shrieked miserably, the flames soared into the sky with a whoosh. The shadow was surrounded and roasted by the flames. Meanwhile, in the small forest on the other side, two loud sounds rang out. Bang bang! Ah! The moment the loud sounds rang out, the other spectre's shriek also rang out. In the small forest, the two skulls turned into ashes in front of Xianyuan Mo's. In the end, they were blown away by the wind and not a single speck was left behind. Qin Xian. Fan Lin hurriedly rushed forward and caught Qin Xian, who had fallen from the tree. Seeing that she was unconscious, he quickly checked her pulse and fed her a pill. "Let's go back," Xianyuan Mo said and used his qi to make the wheelchair fly up. He turned around and led the way back. Feng Jiu waved her hand and removed the barrier. Xianyuan Mo's was the first to return. The wheelchair flew down and stopped in front of her. "How are you? Are you all right?" Xianyuan Mo's asked and looked at the carriage. "Don't worry, it's all right. I've sent the child into the space," Feng Jiu said with a smile. She looked back and saw that Hui Lang was limping and Qin Xian was unconscious. She said, "Let me take a look at Qin Xian." Hearing that the child was in the interspace, Xianyuan Mo's relaxed. "Master, Qin Xian's condition," Fan said and quickly put Qin Xian. As soon as Feng Jiu reached out and touched her pulse, she felt a cold air coming from her fingertip. She took back her hand and turned her palm. She used the life flame in her body to force the Yin Qi out of her body with the help of her spiritual power. Fan Lin supported her and saw that there was a trace of cold air coming out of her head. Her originally cold body gradually warmed up, and his heart finally relaxed. After seeing his master withdraw his hand, he couldn't help but ask worriedly, "Master, she has been possessed for so long, will her body not be able to recover? She will be weaker these days. You pay more attention and take good care of her. In addition, she also has some internal injuries. You help her recuperate," Feng Jiu said, and then said to Bai Qingqing and Ling Shuang, "You two take her into the carriage and help her change her clothes and clean her up." "Okay." The two answered and stepped forward to help the unconscious Qin Xian up. Chapter 3891. "Hui Lang, how are you?" Feng Jiu asked, her gaze falling on Hui Lang. "Don't worry, madam. I'm fine. It's just some minor injuries." Hui Lang grinned, limping to the side and sitting down. Seeing many people come forward to help him apply medicine, Feng Jiu did not step forward. She came to Xianyuan Mo's side and sat down. For a moment she did not speak, only looking ahead and thinking. The two sat in silence for a long time. Xianyuan Mo looked at her and saw her brows slightly furrowed, with worry in her eyes. He asked, "Are you still worried?" "Yes, I didn't expect something like this to happen tonight." Feng Jiu sighed softly in her heart. She did not expect that the Yin fiends would detect the innate spiritual bodies of the two children. Generally speaking, to detect spiritual bodies, one must test their spiritual energy. However, the spiritual energy of the two children was too pure and could not be concealed. In addition, the cultivation of these two Yin fiends was extremely high, so they were targeted. His voice paused and then he said, "Don't worry. It's not often that we encounter Yin fiends with such high cultivation." "I hope so," Feng Jiu said softly, her heart gradually relieved. So what if there was danger? With them by the children's side, they could naturally protect them and let them grow up safely. Because Qin Xian and Du Fan were injured, they were not in a hurry to continue their journey. Especially after the threat here was removed, they first rested here, preparing to rest for a day before moving. Qin Xian woke up early the next morning. Because of the medicinal pills that helped her heal, her internal injuries gradually recovered. However, her pale face could not hide the weakness of her body. Fortunately, Fan Lin took care of her and helped her recuperate. After a few days, they arrived at a town. Looking at the lively town in front of them, everyone's faces overflowed with smiles. "Yama Lord, Master, there's a town in front of us. It seems that we can have a good rest tonight," Luo Yu said happily, even his steps becoming lighter. "Then let's rest here for a day or two," Feng Jiu said with a smile, lifting the curtain with one hand and looking outside. As the carriage entered the town, a few men stood at the entrance of the town and looked at the beautiful woman who lifted the curtain and peered outside. They couldn't help but stare blankly. It wasn't until their carriage entered the town that they regained their senses. "Hiss! Was that a fairy? It's so beautiful!" a man said as he looked at the carriage that was gradually disappearing into the distance. Not only is the red-clothed woman in the carriage breathtakingly beautiful, even the few women sitting and following outside are rare beauties. The other side recovered from their shock, and their eyes were filled with amazement. One of the older men sighed softly and said, "Stop looking, come back to your senses. Didn't you see the men beside the carriage? Each and every one of them has an outstanding temperament. It can be seen that they aren't ordinary people. Moreover, that carriage is also low-key and luxurious. I reckon that they must be from some big family. Such a beautiful woman, any man who sees her would take a few more glances. We are stunned by her. This is human nature. After all, everyone has a love for beauty. Don't you think so?" "Ha ha ha ha," the man said, patting the shoulder of the person next to him and laughing loudly. Yes, that's right." The other two nodded in agreement, their faces full of smiles. Chapter 3892. The few of them put their arms around each other's shoulders as they walked towards the town, thinking that they might even be able to stay in the same inn as those delightful people. Thinking of this, the smiles on their faces deepened, and their footsteps became lighter. Fengjiu's carriage stopped in front of a high-end inn. Linghua jumped off the carriage first and said, "Master, Yama Lord, please wait a moment. I'll go and ask if there are any rooms available." Fengjiu, who was in the carriage, responded and continued to play with the two children. Looking at little Yu'er, who was in Xianyuan Mo's arms, drooling as she smiled, she couldn't help but chuckle. "Look at this child, she's drooling again. She's staining the front of your clothes." Xianyuan Mo's dotingly used a soft handkerchief to gently wipe off his daughter's saliva and said, "It's okay, it'll dry in a while." Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes were full of smiles. Thinking of the past, his body couldn't be stained with the slightest bit of dirt, but now, his daughter's saliva was okay. Looking at him carefully holding little Yu'er in his arms with a gentle and doting expression, she couldn't help but feel a little jealous and said, "Mose, now that you have a daughter, you don't want me anymore, right?" Xianyuan Mose was startled and looked at her with some puzzlement. "How can that be? How can it not be? You say it yourself, whenever you have the chance you carry your daughter. It's fine if I don't care, but you also don't care about your son. Do you only have your daughter in your eyes?" Fengjiu said sourly, feeling that he was being unreasonable. However, she could also see that between his son and his daughter, he doted on his daughter more. As for her, in these past few months, the two of them hadn't been intimate even once. This made her sometimes wonder, could it be that after giving birth to a child, her attractiveness wasn't that great? It was said that women aged quickly, especially after giving birth to a child. Could it be that she was already showing signs of age? Or were there wrinkles at the corners of her eyes? She couldn't care less about her jealousy. While holding her son, she took out a mirror from her space and looked at herself in the mirror. She murmured, "My complexion isn't very good recently, right? Do I look tired?" Xianyuan Mose didn't know what she was thinking. He only knew that she was talking to herself, so he said, "You're just a little thinner than before. It's normal that your complexion isn't as good as before. After all, you've been walking all this time." Before he could finish his words, he heard her exclaim softly, giving him a fright. "You really don't look well? Was he haggard? His skin was dull? Or are there wrinkles?" She frowned as she touched her face. Xianyuan Mose looked at her blankly and said, "No, you don't have any wrinkles. You're still as beautiful as ever." He felt a little strange in his heart. Why did she suddenly say such strange things? She should know that even if she was older, he would still only have her in his heart. He couldn't guess what women were thinking, especially someone like him who had zero emotional intelligence. He couldn't understand what women were thinking sometimes. Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "Chen-er and Yu'er are both your children. You must treat them equally and not be biased. Otherwise, when they grow up and become more sensible, they will naturally notice the difference in your treatment." Chapter 38-93. In his opinion, a daughter should be spoiled a bit. Just like how a treasure would melt in the mouth, like how a treasure would fall in the palm of the hand. As for a son, he should be disciplined. Since young, he should be instilled with the concept of taking care of and loving his younger sister. An elder brother should act like an elder brother. Of course, he didn't intend to say these words to Fengjiu. He reckoned that if he said it, she would feel that he was biased. Hearing his words, Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "What you said is somewhat reasonable. However, spoiling her too much won't do. If she's spoiled too much, it won't be good. That won't happen. She's our daughter. Naturally, she won't learn to be arrogant and willful. What's more, she's still young." While speaking, Xianyuan Mose lowered his head to look at his daughter in his embrace. He saw the little person in his embrace blinking her bright black eyes and grinning. That little appearance was so cute that he couldn't help but lean over and kiss her tender little face. "Little Yu'er is so obedient. Xianyuan Mose praised her with a smile. Seeing his daughter giggling and dancing with joy, he also laughed. Children were the most innocent and worry-free. A child's smile was also the cleanest. Seeing her happily smiling, he naturally also laughed with her. This kind of feeling, in his opinion, was very wonderful. Seeing this scene, Fengjiu felt happy in her heart. At the same time, she inwardly scolded herself for not adjusting her mentality. Unexpectedly, she was jealous of her own daughter. She was just about to tease little Yu when she heard Ling Hua's voice from outside. "Master, Yama Lord, the room has already been booked. Let's rest here." Seeing this, Fengjiu took Yu from Xianyuan Mose's embrace and said, "Let's get off the carriage first. Go inside and play with the child." Xianyuan Mose nodded and got off the carriage first. Sitting in his wheelchair, he waited for them to get off the carriage. Bai Qingqing and Ling Shuang each carried a child and waited at the side. At this time, Fengjiu got off the carriage and came to Xianyuan Mose's side, pushing him inside. Their group's outstanding appearances would attract attention no matter where they went. Just like now, when the people on the first floor of the inn entered, their gazes also fell on them, sizing them up. This inn was the best inn in this town. Those who could stay here were all rich people. At this time, when they saw Fengjiu and the others come in, the people in the inn were slightly surprised and secretly shocked. Anyone with a bit of insight would naturally be able to tell that this group of people was not ordinary. One had to know that the cultivation world was never short of handsome men and beautiful women. However, it would be difficult to find someone as outstanding as this group of people, even in the cultivation world, who could compare to them. "I rented the rear courtyard of this inn. It's quieter there," Ling Hua said and led them to the rear courtyard. When they arrived at the rear courtyard, Hui Lang looked around and grinned. "There are quite a lot of rooms here. The environment also looks pretty good. And the price is also very unusual," Luo Yu said from the side. He crossed his arms and walked while looking at the decoration and environment inside. "Master, this is the master bedroom in the rear courtyard. Take a look and see if you're satisfied? If you don't like it, you can change it again," Ling Hua said while looking at the flowers and trees in the courtyard. Fengjiu roughly looked around and asked Xianyuan Mose, "What do you think?" Chapter 3894. Fengjiu pursed her lips into a smile and said to Ling Hua, "That's good enough. Being outside can't compare to being at home. Moreover, staying at an inn was already much better than sleeping in the open." Hearing this, Ling Hua smiled warmly and said, "Good. Then Mistress Yama Lord, you should rest first. I'll go ahead and make some arrangements and have them prepare some food." As he spoke, he bowed and retreated. "Just give the children to me. You should go tidy up and rest," Fengjiu said as she took the two children and carried them on her left and right. After entering the room, she placed the two children on the bed and leaned against the bed to stretch. She leaned against the headboard and watched as Xianyuan Mose came in. After looking around, she poured a cup of water from the table and drank it. She propped up her chin with one hand and looked at him, admiring his handsome and resolute face. Regardless of whether it was his injuries or his inability to walk, it didn't affect his unique calm aura. Instead, it added an indescribable charm to him. Because he hadn't shaved for 2 days, there was a bit of beard growing on his chin. However, it didn't give off a sloppy feeling. Instead, it was very manly. "What's wrong?" Seeing her stare at him, Xianyuan Mose was a little confused. "Nothing. It's just that when I look at you, I feel that you're very pleasing to the eye." She smiled lightly and got up to sit by the table. She also poured a cup of water to drink. When Xianyuan Mose heard this, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The corners of his lips curved as he said, "It's rare to hear you praise my appearance. However," he stroked the beard that had grown on his chin and said, "It's time to shave." On this side, the two were chatting. On the bed, the two children were waving their hands and feet and trying to turn over. Gradually, one of the children came to the side of the bed. The other tried to turn over but couldn't. However, because his foot went out of the bed first, his entire body rolled off the bed. Xianyuan Mose caught a glimpse of a pink figure rolling off the bed from the corner of his eye. He was so frightened that he immediately stood up and rushed out. Fengjiu turned around in astonishment and saw Xianyuan Mose sitting on the ground, holding his naughty daughter who was still waving her hands and feet. The little girl didn't know what had just happened and was still happily waving her hands and feet and giggling. Mose. Fengjiu quickly went forward and asked, "How are you? Are you okay?" She didn't pay attention to him just now. She saw him dash out like a bolt of lightning. The child was fine after being caught by him, but she didn't know if he fell. Xianyuan Mose's heart was still pounding, as if it was going to jump out of his chest. Even if something had happened to him, he had never been so frightened. God knew that he was so frightened that his heart almost stopped. He really didn't dare to imagine what would happen if such a small child fell off the bed like that. Thinking of this, a layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. His hands tightly held the child in his arms. He gently exhaled and calmed his frightened heart. "I'm fine. It's all my fault. I should have used the blanket to shield them. At least this kind of thing wouldn't have happened," Fengjiu said with some self-blame. Fortunately, he had caught the child. Otherwise, if the child had been hurt or something, she really didn't know what to do. Chapter 3895. Fengjiu took their daughter from his embrace. Seeing that she was still smiling happily, she couldn't help but poke her nose. "Why are you so mischievous? Do you know that you've scared father and mother?" Haha, little Yuer's chubby little hand hugged Fengjiu's hand and was about to stuff it into her mouth when she saw Fengjiu laughing and shaking her head. She placed her daughter back on the bed and helped Xianyuan Mose up. Letting him sit on the bedside, she patted his robe and said, "I'll have someone prepare water. Soak in it first and relax." Xianyuan Mose agreed. Looking at the two children on the bed, he felt that his daughter's mischievous activities were very similar to Fengjiu's character. His son was more like him, not very fond of smiling and also more quiet. Fengjiu went outside and told them to prepare water for the bath. Seeing that Linghua was carrying things over, she told him to bring them into the room. It was nighttime, so everyone went to bed early. Because this inn's rear courtyard had been booked by them, they laid down a barrier here to prevent anyone from breaking in. Everyone could also have a good rest. After Fengjiu bathed, she dried her hair while looking at the big bed. Seeing Xianyuan Mose coaxing the two children to sleep, she walked over and sat down on the bed. "Asleep?" She softened her voice and looked at the two children sleeping soundly. "Just fell asleep." As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he saw that she was still drying her hair, so he used his spiritual aura to send the two children to sleep on a small bed at the side. With a flick of his finger, two small blankets covered each of them. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows as she watched. Seeing that he didn't even need to carry them, he directly let the two children sleep on the small bed and covered them with the small blankets. She chuckled. While drying her hair, she heard his voice. "I'll help you dry." Before she could react, his hand wrapped around her chest and pressed her down on his lap. He took the towel in her hand and gently wiped her dry hair. Fengjiu lay on his lap and looked up at him. He heard his deep voice with a hint of laughter. "Do you think that I've been neglecting you recently?" Fengjiu blinked. "No. You really don't have any." Xianyuan Mose glanced at her with a smile in his deep black eyes. "I really didn't. Since when did you neglect me?" As Fengjiu spoke, her eyes turned slightly, but she secretly thought to herself, "It's just that I feel that since I gave birth to the child, the two of them have rarely been intimate." Of course, she would not tell him this. Xianyuan Mose looked at her expression, then channeled a bit of spiritual energy into his palm to dry her hair. Then, he said, "You said it in the carriage today. Just now I thought about it carefully and felt that I have indeed neglected you during this period of time." He threw away the towel in his hand and held her face in his hands as he slowly leaned down. Fengjiu blinked, her heart beating fast. She watched as he leaned down and kissed her lips with his warm and sexy lips. Before she could react, he had already begun his attack. One hand lifted her chin and the other hand reached into her waist and moved up. Chapter 38-96. Ah Jiu, did you miss me? The man's warm breath brushed against her ear, and his deep voice was husky and magnetic. It made her ears go numb, and half of her body went limp. Ah Jiu, do you want to do this? As soon as she heard his seductive voice, the tip of his tongue gently licked her earlobe. He gently bit her ear in his mouth and rubbed against it, making her tremble involuntarily. Or do you want to do this? His hand moved from her waist all the way up. Her slightly plump body felt even better to touch. Her smooth skin and soft body were so ecstatic that he couldn't bear to move his hand away from her body. Fengjiu couldn't help but snort. She didn't know why he was so passionate tonight, but she loved his passion and superb skills. As the two of them rubbed against each other, their clothes were taken off one by one. Xianyuan Mose sat on the bed. He reached out and lifted Fengjiu into his arms. He pressed one hand against the back of her head and leaned over to kiss her again. Due to the entanglement of the two figures on the bed curtains slowly fell down, covering the spring scenery on the bed. Through the bed curtains, the two figures on the bed could be faintly seen, as well as the soft moans of ecstasy that could be heard. The two children were sleeping soundly on the small bed. No one knew what they were dreaming of, but a smile appeared on their innocent sleeping faces, and a trace of saliva flowed from the corner of their mouths. It was late at night, and the master bedroom was filled with endless spring scenery. On the other side, Fan Lin was carrying a bowl of soup to Qin Xian's door. Qin Xian, are you asleep? When she heard the voice coming from outside, Qin Xian put on her clothes and got out of bed. She went to the outer room and opened the door. When she saw Fan Lin, she said, I just lay down. I couldn't sleep, so I was reading a medical book. When he heard this, Fan Lin smiled and said, I saw that there was still light in your room, so I brought you a bowl of soup. Come in quickly, Qin Xian said as she invited him into the room. Fan Lin hesitated for a moment. I'd better not go in. Drink this soup before you sleep. It's getting late and your body hasn't fully recovered. It's better to rest early. Upon hearing this, Qin Xian looked at him and reached out to take the soup from him. She said, Thank you. We're all on the same side. Don't be so polite. After saying that, Fan Lin seemed to have thought of something. His ears turned red and he said uncomfortably, Then you go in. Rest early, I'll go back first. Without waiting for her reply, he hurriedly turned around and left. Qin Xian watched him leave with a bowl of soup in her hand. She was stunned for a moment when she saw his ears turn red when he turned around. Then she pursed her lips and smiled. She closed the door and brought the soup to the table. He opened the lid and saw that it was a pot of stewed soup. The smell of ginseng wafted out, as well as a few medicinal herbs that nourished the body. The night was slightly cold. However, when she looked at the pot of stewed soup, her heart felt warm and fuzzy. The next morning, Fengjiu woke up to the cries of her two children. However, as soon as she moved, she felt as though her entire body was falling apart. She was sore. She rubbed her waist and was about to get out of bed when a pair of bare arms hugged her. You've been tired all night. Let Ling Shuang come in and carry you. You can sleep for a while more, said Xianyuan Mose. His voice was slightly hoarse, which was very charming. Chapter 38-97. Xianyuan Mose smiled. His hand was pushed away by her, so he propped his head up with one hand and leaned sideways on the bed. He watched her get up and put on her clothes, admiring the curves of her plump body. After Fengjiu picked up the child and fed him, she called out for Ling Shuang to prepare water for a bath. By the time the two of them left the room, it was already close to noon, and the child had fallen asleep after eating his fill. After a bath, the soreness in her body had subsided a little. Fengjiu stretched and walked out. Seeing that the weather was good, she wanted to walk around the city, so she said to Xianyuan Mose, "The weather is good. I want to go out for a walk and buy some things. Let's go together." Xianyuan Mose glanced at her and said, "Let Ling Shuang and Ling Hua accompany you. I'll stay with the child so that they won't cry when they wake up." Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled. "All right, I'll buy some pastries and other things back." As she spoke, she called for Ling Hua and Ling Shuang, and gave Du Fan and the others some instructions. The three of them then walked out of the inn. Luo Yu watched as Fengjiu and the others left, and couldn't help but say, Actually I also want to go out with Master." "Then go. We'll be here," Qi Kong said as he poured a cup of tea for Xianyuan Mose. "But I also feel that it's rare to have so much free time. It's not bad to bask in the sun here." Luo Yu grinned and moved out a soft couch, lying down under a small tree in the courtyard. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other and smiled at the same time. "Qi Kong, come and play a few games of chess," Xianyuan Mose said as he gestured for him to sit down. "Yes." Qi Kong responded and sat down at the table, then took out a chessboard from his space. Du Fan held a fan in his hand and gently fanned himself. He came to the side and sat down, intending to watch the game from the side. Fan Lin put 2 chairs in front of the door of the master bedroom and said to Qin Xian, "Qin Xian, sit down. It's not that hot, and we can watch over little master and the others. If they wake up, we'll know immediately." Qin Xian glanced at him. Under the teasing gazes of the others, she slightly lowered her head and responded. With a bit of shyness, she went to sit beside Fan Lin. Bai Qingqing went to the inn in front of them, and brought some pastries and fresh fruits to the side for everyone to eat. She also poured a cup of tea for everyone and then waited by the side, watching them play chess. On the other side, Fengjiu, dressed in red, led Ling Shuang and Ling Hua out of the inn. Walking on the street and looking at the bustling streets, she couldn't help but smile happily and relaxedly. Ling Shuang and Ling Hua followed beside her. They saw that their master was obviously in a good mood today, and was full of energy. The two of them looked at each other, pursed their lips and smiled, and quietly followed behind her. "This town doesn't look big, but there are many things on the street," Fengjiu said as she picked up a rattle drum from a stall and shook it, making a crisp sound. She looked back at the two of them and asked, "Look at this. What do you think of buying this to play with?" Ling Hua looked at the rattle drum and felt that the workmanship was a bit rough. He said, "Master, I saw a shop selling children's toys over there. Why don't we go there and have a look?" "Is there?" Fengjiu said in surprise and looked in the direction he pointed. "Yes, it's over there. It's not far from here." Ling Hua pointed at a shop in front of them. However, at this moment, an arrogant shout came at them. Chapter 3898. A man shouted arrogantly. He strode over and reached out to break Ling Hua's hand. Ling Hua glanced at the man and saw that there were 7 or 8 people behind him. They were all burly and had fierce expressions on their faces. When he saw that the man was about to break his hand, he dodged the man's outstretched hand and retracted his own. He said gently, "I wasn't pointing at you. No? Do you think I'm blind? I was collecting money over there when I saw you pointing at me. Tell me, what do you want?" He puffed out his muscular chest and walked forward, wanting to use his chest to hit Ling Hua. But who would have thought that when he took a step forward, his chest couldn't even move Ling Hua in the slightest. This made him feel a little embarrassed. Especially after trying a few times, he still felt that the other party couldn't even shake him. He became angry from embarrassment. He raised his fist and swung it heavily at Ling Hua's gentle face. "You're asking for it," the man shouted angrily and swung his fist. However, in the next moment, the fist didn't land on Ling Hua's body. Instead, Ling Hua reached out and grabbed it. Ling Hua twisted his body sideways and kicked the man's knee with the tip of his foot. The man immediately knelt down. Hiss! The man sucked in a breath of cold air. One of his hands was twisted behind his back. His knee was numb and he couldn't even stand up. His face was red. He shouted at the 7 or 8 people standing at the side, stunned. "What are you still looking at? Hurry up and attack. Kid, let go of our boss." The 7 or 8 people shouted. They reached for their waists and pulled out their swords to slash at Ling Hua. Ling Hua pulled the man kneeling on the ground up to block them. The man was so scared that his face turned pale. He cried out in alarm, "Ah! Watch out! Watch out! Don't cut me!" He struggled to free his hand, but as he struggled, a cracking sound came from his bones. The pain made him break out in a cold sweat. He knew in his heart that his hand had been broken. The blade couldn't be retracted, so it could only slash to the side. When the wind swept past, the man who was being held by Ling Hua was so shocked that his legs went soft. He gritted his teeth and shouted at the man who was wielding the blade, "God damn it! Do you want to kill me or save me? Quickly put away the knife and use your fist." However, at this moment, Ling Hua grabbed the man with one hand and rushed forward. In a few moves, he beat the man who pounced with his fists to the ground. Looking at the bruised and swollen men, he picked up the one next to him and asked, "Do you still want to fight?" "No, no more fighting, no more fighting." The man quickly shook his head and said. Hearing that, Ling Hua pushed him and said, "Get lost. Don't let me see you again." As soon as the man regained his freedom, he hissed and clutched his injured arm. He glanced at Ling Hua, who had turned around to leave, and a ruthless look flashed across his eyes. In the next moment, he flicked his sleeve and 2 hidden weapons shot out without warning. Whoosh! Ling Hua originally wanted to let them go and didn't want to kill them. However, when he turned around, the murderous aura behind him made him turn back. At the same time, he flicked his sleeve and a wave of spiritual energy shot out, sending the 2 hidden weapons back. Whoosh whoosh! The 2 hidden weapons shot back at the man. The man didn't expect the hidden weapons to be shot back. He couldn't dodge in time, and the 2 hidden weapons pierced his chest. Ah! Chapter 3899. Seeing the man fall to the ground, his body convulsing as he spat out black blood. His lips and face quickly turned a dark purple color, the surrounding people cried out in alarm. "Ah! Murder! Murder!" The people at the stall cried out in alarm and avoided the scene. When the 7 or 8 men who got up from the ground saw their big brother fall to the ground and spit out black blood, their faces turned pale with fright. The 2 braver men went forward to help him up. "Big brother, big brother!" They searched his body and shouted, "Where's the antidote? Where's the antidote? Where is it?" There's no antidote. Cough cough. Help me take revenge." As he spoke, he couldn't catch his breath and breathed his last. Even in death, his eyes were wide open. "Big brother!" The 2 men who were supporting Ling Hua shouted. They looked at Ling Hua in horror as they dragged Ling Hua's body back. They kept saying, "You're dead! You're dead! You actually killed our big brother! You're dead!" Feng Jiu and Ling Hua stood to the side. When they saw the people at the stalls retreat and look at Ling Hua with pity, their hearts moved. They walked forward and asked an old woman, "Old madam, who is that dead person?" The old woman saw that Feng Jiu was beautiful in red and her tone was gentle and kind. She whispered, "That's the local tyrant of this city. He's been collecting protection fees in the city because his brother-in-law is the city lord." As she spoke, the old woman said, "Madam, you should leave quickly. If the city lord comes, you won't be able to leave." The 3 of them had outstanding appearances and temperament. When the 3 of them walked together, the people on the street were looking at them. They knew that they were together. Now that the man had killed the local tyrant, he was probably in trouble. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled. "Thank you, but it's okay." It was indeed okay. Even if the city lord was here, it wouldn't matter if they killed him, not to mention that he was just a relative of the city lord. They were strong, but they were never the type to bully the weak. However, since they had offended them, they couldn't blame anyone else. Because someone had died here, the city guards in the city quickly arrived. A group of more than 20 people quickly surrounded the area. When the man in the lead saw the dead person on the ground, his eyes narrowed. He immediately looked around and shouted, "Who killed him?" "Captain, he's the one who killed him. He killed my big brother," the two men who were supporting the corpse said as they pointed at Leng Hua, who was still standing there. "Capture him!" The guard captain waved his hand and shouted. Just as the guards were about to step forward, a gentle voice rang out, "Why are you arresting him?" Feng Jiu glanced at the guard captain and slowly walked up to Ling Hua's side. He looked at them and said, "Are you trying to arrest me without any reason? On what basis? Who are you?" The guard captain shouted. When he saw Feng Jiu's face, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. His tone also softened a little. "It's none of your business. Don't get involved. Move aside. He's one of my men," Feng Jiu said indifferently. His gaze landed on the corpse on the ground. He said, "This person deserved to die. The hidden weapon was his own, and he was the one who poisoned himself. Now that he's dead, who can he blame?" Chapter 3900. Hearing Feng Jiu's words, the guard captain's face darkened. "Do you know that he is our city lord's brother-in-law? Your people killed him. Do you think you can just let it go like this?" Feng Jiu chuckled. "We were just acting in self-defense. Moreover, we haven't even pursued the matter of him trying to kill us. If we pursue the matter, even your city lord will be implicated." Hearing this, the guard captain's eyes flashed. He looked at Feng Jiu's group and asked, "You're not from here?" "That's right, we just happened to pass by and decided to rest here," Feng Jiu said casually. Hearing this, the guard captain's face lit up. "No wonder you dared to say such big words. We must bring this person back to report on our mission. As for the two of you, you should leave quickly. If our city lord comes here, you won't be able to leave even if you want to." With the beauty of these two women, if their city lord came, it would be difficult for them to escape the clutches of the city lord. Others might not know, but he knew that there were many beautiful women secretly kidnapped in the city lord's mansion. If those women could catch the city lord's eye, there was no need to mention these two women. "The city lord is here," someone shouted from behind. Feng Jiu and the others looked over and saw a group of people quickly jogging over. In the middle of the group, a man of about 40 years old followed quickly. The first thing he saw was not the dead brother-in-law on the ground, but the dazzling red-clothed Feng Jiu. Seeing such a beauty, a trace of amazement flashed across his eyes. Light blossomed in his eyes as he stared at her as if she was his prey. Without saying a word, he shouted in a deep voice, "Capture all of them!" Seeing the guards rushing over, Leng Shuang coldly shouted, "Impudent!" As soon as the voice fell, a powerful pressure spread out. The powerful pressure immediately stopped the guards in their track. Their faces were pale as they retreated. They vaguely felt as if a mountain was pressing down on them, making them unable to stand up. The city lord stared at Feng Jiu and praised in his heart, "How could there be such a beautiful woman?" However, at this moment, he heard the cold shout and felt a terrifying pressure. That pressure was like an ice needle piercing into his body, causing him to shiver. He suddenly came back to his senses and looked at the woman in black. You, he stared at Leng Shuang in shock, unable to believe that such a powerful pressure had come from the woman in black. Under that pressure, the blood in his body churned, but his blood was piercingly cold. The pressure grew stronger and heavier, causing his knees to bend involuntarily under the pressure. With a plop, he knelt down and spat out a mouthful of blood. "City Lord!" Everyone was shocked and looked at the city lord who was kneeling on his knees. As for the surrounding commoners, they did not approach and the pressure did not fall on them. Naturally, they did not know why the city lord suddenly became like this. However, they vaguely felt that it had something to do with the woman in black who shouted. When the guard captain saw this scene, He was so shocked that he was speechless. He only felt that the pressure had not dissipated and was still lingering in the air. Most of it landed on the city lord's body. Chapter 39:01. Feng Jiu and the others looked in the direction of the voice and saw a monk in a beige robe standing in the crowd with his palms clasped together. He was very conspicuous. Looking at the monk, Feng Jiu's eyes flickered. This was the first time she saw a monk here, and he looked no different from the monks she had seen in her previous life. No, there was something different. There was a Buddha's light on this monk. Even if it was faint, it was still the Buddha's light. As far as she knew, most of the Buddhas and monks on this continent were from the Million Buddhas sect. Thinking of this, she raised her hand and motioned for Leng Shuang to step back. "Master, are you from the Million Buddhas sect?" she asked directly, her eyes falling on the monk. Since he could remove the pressure of Leng Shuang with a flick of his hand, his strength and cultivation were not a problem. It was reasonable to call him a master. There was a little monk behind the monk. When he heard Feng Jiu's words, he could not help but poke his head out from behind and look at Feng Jiu curiously. When the monk in front heard Feng Jiu's words, he just smiled and said, "Benefactress, you have sharp eyes." Feng Jiu smiled and said slowly, "Today, I will give you face and not kill this person, but—" She paused, and a cold light suddenly shot out from her fingers and cut off the arm of the city lord kneeling on the ground like a sharp blade. Hiss! Ah! With a shrill scream, the broken arm rolled on the ground. Blood splashed out instantly and spilled all over the ground. It was a shocking sight. No one had expected this sudden scene. Even the monk was slightly stunned. It seemed that he did not expect her to attack so suddenly and so quickly that he had no time to stop her. "You can avoid death, but you can't escape punishment." Feng Jiu spoke unhurriedly. Her clear eyes did not look at the wailing city lord who had his arm chopped off. Instead, she looked at the monk. The monk put his hands together, lowered his head slightly and murmured, "Amitabha. My name is Feng Jiu. How should I address you, Grand Master?" The monk looked at Feng Jiu, who was dressed in red, with a faint smile on his beautiful face. His expression was calm and indifferent, as if he did not see the corpse on the ground and the city lord who was bleeding profusely with a severed arm. Seeing her like this, he chanted Amitabha in his heart, and then slowly said, "Benefactress, this poor monk's dharma name is Ijie." "Master Ijie, we'll meet again," Feng Jiu said with a smile. Then, he turned and left with Ling Hua and Ling Shuang. Hearing those words, the monk fell into deep thought. He watched as the three of them disappeared at the end of the street. He had a premonition that they would meet again. The little monk popped his head out from behind and asked curiously, "Master, why is this female benefactor so powerful?" "She is very human," the monk said slowly. The monk spoke softly as he looked at the man on the ground. He then clasped his hands together and said, "Amitabha. Benefactor, your sins are too heavy. If you don't do good deeds, your life will be in danger in the future. Benefactor, take care of yourself." With that, the monk led the little monk past the person on the ground and left. Chapter 39:02. The city guards hurriedly sent the governor for medical treatment, and the head guard ordered people to clean up the ground. As they left, the people on the street could not help but look at each other. No one could figure out what was going on. They had thought that the beautiful woman in red and her two companions would suffer, but who knew that the governor's arm was cut off, and the three people did not dare to do anything to them. The peddlers moved their stalls away and began to sell things again. The smell of blood on the street gradually dissipated, as if the previous scene had never happened. On the other side, Feng Jiu, Ling Hua, and Ling Shuang came to another street and entered a shop to buy some children's toys. Ling Hua asked in confusion, "Master, since that man is from the Million Buddhas sect, why didn't you ask him?" He was a little puzzled. He didn't understand why his master only mentioned the monk's name and didn't ask him about it, since he knew that the monk was from the Million Buddhist sect. Even if the other party did not tell him everything,
He could probably find out whether the Golden Lotus was really in the Million Buddhas sect or not. Hearing Ling Hua's words, Fengjiu smiled and played with a small toy in her hand. She said, "It doesn't matter whether I ask him or not. Anyway, I have to go to the Million Buddhas sect. The holy land of Buddhism. What if they don't let you in?" Ling Hua asked again. After all, those were monks, and women were generally not allowed to enter their sect. Fengjiu smiled and said slowly, "If I want to go in, who can stop me?" She played with the small rattledrum in her hand and said to Leng Shuang, "Go to pay the bill." "Yes." Leng Shuang responded and went to the front counter to pay the bill. Fengjiu walked out and stood on the street to look around. When Leng Shuang came out, she said to them, "There is a pastry shop over there. Let's buy some and take it back." "Okay." The two of them answered and accompanied her to the pastry shop. After buying some pastries, Fengjiu also bought some soy sauce meat. They strolled around the city for a while before returning to the inn. "We're back." Fengjiu entered the inn's backyard and saw Xianyuan Mose holding Mu Chun and feeding him something. Next to him was a crib with little Yu lying inside. She stepped forward and asked, "Is the child hungry?" When Xianyuan Mose saw that she had returned, he said, "They woke up for a while, but they couldn't stop crying, so I asked Qingqing to make some porridge for them. Look, they've already eaten half a bowl." Fengjiu smiled and saw Mu Chun eating with his little mouth and licking with his little tongue. He couldn't help but scratch his nose. "Son, do you miss your mother?" The little fellow grinned and stretched out his arms, wanting Fengjiu to hold him. Seeing this, Fengjiu took a handkerchief from the side and wiped the corners of his mouth. She then took him and asked, "Has you eaten?" "Yes," Xianyuan Mose said and looked at his daughter in the crib. His eyes were gentle as he said, "Feed her first. She'll only be obedient after she eats." Seeing him playing with his daughter, she said to Leng Hua, "Go and cut the soy sauce meat we just bought and send wine to everyone." "Yes." Leng Hua responded and turned to leave.